Folks, Brian got to play Elderath yesterday. Getting around to doing my campaign diary video. So, anyway, it is year 684 of the Lords of Bloodstone, which is also year 28 of Lady Tamara. We are in the first month, which is called Lore. It's the second week, and it's the 9th day, which is called Tal. And that's how this current session 23 for me, went. There was a session last weekend, no, 2 weekends ago, that I did not participate with. So those who were there got to do something with these goblins that we're just kind of following up on as a backup group kind of thing. So one evening, a field hand, blood and bruised, burst into the welcome wench. "Goblins!" he cried. "They ran the cattle into the woods and set the farm to flame." "That's Sven from Hobbs' place," said Gundagoot. "You get down there and find out what happened. Track down the cattle." He gestures in your general direction. "I muster the watch." So we depart the inn, seeing that Sven is being cared for, and Gundagoot calls the watch to muster as we head south to Hobbs' farm. There's an ominous orange glow at our destination. When we arrive, the barn is blazing. Bodies lay where they have been shot, arrows protruding from each. Cries from the farmhouse are heard over the roar of the flames. A few goblins are slain in rescuing the remaining family and hands who managed to hide. We learn that both Hobbs and his wife were taken. Town watch arrives, along with us, several other villagers who work to put out the fire. Tracks of the cattle lead south, and we estimate about a dozen goblins. We, the rest of the party, arrive with the militia, the leader of who is the son of the militia captain, Rothrinton. The leader is actually his son Elmo. There we go. That's how that works out. So we did that all overnight kind of thing. So we tracked the cattle off to the southeast, giving chase kind of thing. We find some cattle along the way being shot, some that have left off. We cross the bridge, go towards the ford. At the ford, we can see that more cattle have run off, and there's a bunch on the other side. So we stop and just go, okay, Wes is thinking this is an ambush. The goblins are set up on the far side, thinking we'll cross over to get the cattle. So there's some strat discussion going on, some tracking, some searching. Alexander remembers that there is a place south of here on this side of the river with a glade of trees. That's right, with rocky outcroppings and stuff. That are a perfect place for goblins to hide out from the sun, because sure enough, the sun is starting to come up. We eventually decide, okay, we're going to go south. We're trying to follow the tracks. It's kind of funny because Wes has very, very little. He's got just the baseline of tracking skills, right? He's not a tracker, but twice he found the tracks of the goblins when the ranger and the spy couldn't. So it was fun. Okay, we get to the place where we think probably the goblins are hiding out. Goes to spy ahead. He runs across a goblin, and then in retreats, going, "Oh, there's goblins! There's goblins!" He fumbles his dodge. The goblin misses. "Are you gonna dodge?" "Might as well." "What if you fumble?" Sure enough, he fumbled. Wes is there with him at that point. He takes down 3 of them. One with a triple powered shock bolt, and one with the other 2 with sleep 5. Raymond, somewhere else around the hillock, gets hit twice by a goblin, and he fumbles his dodge as well. It's kind of interesting because I brought the fact that your dodge is modified by the amount of encumbrance you carry. 1% for every point of encumbrance, because I know people don't track that stuff, but Wes does, and Brian's a rule monger, and so I'll bring that up on occasion. Your dodge is 60, wearing all that mail? Yeah, that kind of thing. But we do manage to take out a number of the goblins. Raymond, in searching around, stumbles across the elders. They're gagged and tied, so we start to take care of them. Those goblins try to sneak upon him one at a time. Chaos ensues. People see goblins, and we end up killing a bunch. We end up capturing the 3 that I had incapacitated and 1 other. We take them back to the farmhouse, thinking that eventually we get back to the Hamlet and the Druid, can speak to these goblins and find out if we can find something, going on with these guys. Because Wes isn't going to kill him outright. In fact, the one he got with a shock bolt, triple strength to the leg, put that leg down. So he's crawling around to sleep, put the other two to sleep. Magical sleep lasts like 2 rounds, so he's busy tying them up. He's not going to run them through. That's just not his style. And then he tracks down the other goblin, who does make a swipe at him. But Wes ends up doing Hold Kind, I think it is, which reduces the opponent's capabilities down to 25%. So it slows them down, decreases what they can do, and that sort of thing. Which then gives him a chance to tie him up. But he tried that first, and it didn't work, so he got swept at him, got him in the arm, I think, did a point of damage to him. Anyway, so we take these 4 goblins we've captured, get back to the farm. The druid is, in fact, there at the farm. So we hand them over, and the druid interrogates them. One of them does talk. Apparently these guys are just strays from a previous attack, and they're just taking advantage of things. Elmo assigns the militia to the goblins back to the tower, and Wes kind of notices wink, wink. And the druid believes that they are just, in fact, an unattached group of goblins. They're not part of some large group who's, specifically bent on doing something. They were on a mission kind of deal. So we return to Hamlet, and sure enough, the goblins are dead. They tried to escape. So we're back at Hamlet discussing, okay, what are we going to do next? And we were planning on going to Minot, the city on the northeast of Hamlet. Bad place, slavers, evil town, that kind of stuff. But how are we going to get there? And we started discussing things like, how long would it take to get there? Walking, riding, mounts, how much a mule going to cost? How much can a mule carry? How much food do we need to have? How much water? And a whole series of these kinds of discussions, which reminds me, the live play is in the description. If you're into that kind of thing. And there's a whole slew of points in there we're all just kind of thinking in our heads and nobody's saying anything. What is this doing? And there's a bunch of stuff where I'm trying to find stuff in the rules, and the GM's trying to find stuff in the rules about, how much encumbrance is a day or a week's worth of iron rations, It doesn't say in the book, right? I finally found something in my fantasy trip stuff that talks about encumbrance, but they went straight with pounds that systems. We have to do a little conversion deal, but I found something. Okay, so we recall that Sir Michael at one point had mentioned that he can arrange for transportation for us, since we're going on this mission for them, to Minot. And so we decided head to Telgar. En route to Telgar, and if you look at the map, which the live plays screens the whole time, is this map, right? Although it's not the hex map, it's just a picture. About halfway to Telgar, there's this little road that goes up to an inn on the coast. And at this crossroads, where lots of people stop and camp and that kind of thing, is that guy Luther with his wagon. And we're just chit-chatting, discussing things over dinner and that kind of stuff. And he talks about, I forgot how we got on that trail of talk. We discussed about how there are permits that are being issued by the University of Zig for people to enter into the Valley of the Ancients for archaeological purposes. Next day, we close up camp that night, and the next day he gets up and he heads north to the inn, and we head on into Telgar. Okay. Once we get to Telgar, we kind of go our separate ways. Raymond goes to the church. Wes goes to the palace to meet with Sir Michael. We kind of agree, okay, at dusk. So I'll meet back here at the Gimpy Pigeon. One of the players made that name up. So the Gimpy Pigeon, which is apparently near the gate. And we'll all meet back there at dusk so we can discuss what we find out. When Wes gets actually to his family's house, cleans up, gets dressed. Word is sent to the palace. A page comes to get him. And the page takes Wes through a circuitous set of pathways, right? Not only to the palace, but inside the palace to a garden. And in this garden, in a side gazebo away from the main traffic, he's taken through an indirect route to get to that gazebo as well. And that's where Sir Michael is. So there's a little discussion there. Okay, Sir Michael, we really think we need to do this Minoc thing. He says, thank you, because we need to find out what happened to the priest. That's our thing too. We want to find out what happened to the priest as well. Because that ties in with Raymond. And he tells us that there's a merchant named Luthar who's going to be traveling to Backwater, which is across the inlet. For his own purposes, but he can arrange for us to get transportation on the ship that's taking him over, that kind of thing. And so we'll need to get back to the coastal inn. Yeah. He also mentions that it's better that certain parties not associate me and our party with this mission to Minot. Politics and that kind of stuff going on in the capital city. Roger that. But getting from Backwater then to Minot is, something else. But Luthar should be able to provide transportation for us for that as well. He's not sure what that would take, and he tells Wes that the party can rely on Luthar's discretion, and that we should use the coinage of that realm, which is Minot. And we actually have some Minot coinage from things we picked up along the way. But Sir Michael mentions that Luthar can exchange currency so that we show up with Minocian coins rather than Telgarian coins, right? Because Minot is not the most hospitable of towns, nor are those from the southern colonies, which are us, are looked upon very well upon. So we need to be careful, because there was a war before between these two sides. And that all happened actually in the swamp where the moat house was, ages ago, kind of thing. Although apparently some of the old timers in Alma remember, yeah, we fought the Minocians, we kicked their butt, that kind of thing. So on my way out, and Wes, kind of backtracks the way he came, all the circuitous travel and kind of thing. And the GM mentions that there are several factions of wizardry in the tower, some of which are considered to be warmongers. And they want to mobilize the forces. They want to expand southwards towards Oban. And Wes stumbles across someone that is associated with one of these warmongering factions. But Wes does manage to avoid interacting and politely excusing himself from that situation, and got a check mark on my courtly lore. Okay, Tindo and Runt hang out at Tindo's place. Raymond, I told you, went to the church, and then everyone meets back at the Pigeon. When spend some time. Oh, okay. After we do this is what we're going to do. This is what's happening. We make the decision. Then it's kind of, again, we go our separate ways. Wes goes back to the house, answers letters. He's got at least one party he needs to attend to that night, so he's going to show up next morning in rough shape. But Runt decides to head west. West is the bad section of town, right? But Tindo trails along with him. They're going to go gambling. And there's a bunch of role play going on with all this kind of stuff. And things happening. And Tindo actually starts winning, but ends up losing 60% of the funds that she was, going to play with. And Runt ends up pulling her out, saying, it's time to go, it's time to go, it's time to go. I'm not sure exactly what triggered that. I wasn't paying that much attention. But Alvis went with him too. But Alvis, when they go into this gambling den, all weapons stay out. And Alvis pulls out that silvered steel sword, and everybody looks and goes, maybe you should just stay outside. You don't want to give these people that sword. You'll never get it back. So he's outside the front of the gambling place. So Tindo and Runt come out, and there's Alvis. And Alvis noticed a shadow by one of these gates. He starts pointing out, but there's nobody there. And then they run to this person named Spider. Now, Brian has heard Spider's name before. Spider's like a spy assassin guy. Bad news. Very powerful. Don't mess with him. But there's some discussion with Runt, because Runt apparently knows Spider. Apparently they're all connected. You know, gang-related activities or something. Previous experience deal. And Spider's pushing on Runt to take the night man's cut from Runt's winnings from that night. But Runt went in with actually gold. This is a silver-based system, so he's got a lot of money that is his money. It wasn't part of the winnings. And so there's a bunch of discussion back and forth, and Spider ends up taking some money from him. And Tindall's drunk, and she kind of spills up stuff about Minok, and so now we know things are going to start spreading. Or Brian thinks things are going to start spreading now, right? But sorry, you going to Minok? Really, what for? That kind of stuff. Well, hey, anyway, when you get there, we've got a job for you to do. And so Runt gets a message that he needs to deliver to someone at the Three Barrels Inn in Minok the next day. And then Tyndall tells Wes and everybody else about Spider. Wes has not actually heard of him, but Raymond has. And that Spider's in charge of oversight of criminal activities on the west side of town, that kind of thing. And from there we head to the coastal inn, where there's in fact a ship anchored in an inlet bay kind of fish thing. It's a 2-masted schooner kind of ship, and there's a rowboat coming in. And that's where we ended that session. All in all, pretty good session. A lot of role playing going on. Of course, there's some good combat up front, which is always fun. And I'm messing with different styles and things to do with Wes to help him be more effective as a fighter. Oh, the Star Quartz Crystal at the Witch Hat. I think I mentioned this. I should have probably mentioned the previous one. Can hold 25 points of mana or power even. And so he keeps that thing charged, and he can start throwing 3 dice shock bolts left and right now. That's really, really handy. But one of the things he was going to try and start doing is casting shock, but holding the trigger. So on the next round, he'll attack with his rapier, and if he hits, he triggers the spell. So the spell damage goes with the sword damage. Actually, get through some of these guys that have got some decent armor on. So maybe that might help out. That's what he's thinking. But that is it. Happy gaming.